Welcome back to our series on 2025 in reflection, 2026 in predictions. Joining me today, Mark Mathson, product manager at Rightworks, including over all of our AI initiatives, which I'm sure is going to come up in conversation. Mark, we work together and I hardly ever get a chance to talk to you. Thank you so much for taking time to jump in for this.
Thanks, Derek. It's my pleasure. Good to connect with you today.
Yeah, man, it's been a heck of a ride over the last year, I guess, 2025. So we're recording this middle to late January, just so that everybody gets a chance to sort of place when you and I are having this conversation. But I want to take us back and let's look at 2025 and sort of reflect upon that. The first question I've got for you, Mark, is what was your biggest lesson learned in 2025?
I would say in 2025, one of the things that stood out to me the most was seeing people go from, hey, AI is amazing and technology, this new enabling technology is new and exciting for us, to actually starting to use it in real day-to-day life. And especially in the accounting industry, we saw many new products splash into the market, including some of our own as well. And people are starting to talk more seriously about what's possible now here in 2026 and beyond. So that was my biggest takeaway.
What would you say is the biggest victory lap for you last year? And this can be personally, this can be professionally, but what was the biggest win for Mark Mathson last year?
I would say as a product manager, realizing that I can work with an AI copilot as my assistant, as my sounding board and collaborator, and really help my capacity and bandwidth just increase exponentially. And when I say that, I mean, I took on some new strategic initiatives for Rightworks last year that I don't think I would have been able to balance with the other things I was already doing without having AI as that copilot. And then as well, what I found really, really interesting, and actually we were able to test this out with some of our live customers, was AI prototypes. And one of the things that's most interesting and compelling about that is that we're able to create an idea, create a prototype, and get it in front of customers in days instead of weeks. And the advantage of that, especially in the accounting industry, we're seeing so many things change so quickly, we can get them in front of customers now instead of months down the road when things have probably already changed. So that was probably my biggest win.
Would you say it's fair to say that the development cycle is almost not even a cycle anymore? It's like a development point in time. That's how fast we're able to do things with AI.
I would say that's a good observation. I would say that the feedback loop has gotten a lot tighter now because developers themselves and people that are building any kind of a product are able to get almost instant feedback on something that they're building, whether they're writing something by hand, which is still relevant, or using AI to help be a co-pilot. It really makes a difference now. And like I said, the feedback loop has gotten a lot tighter. But one of the most interesting things is that it's no longer, we're talking about sprints and cycles. We're talking about minutes and hours. So you can start building something, you can start seeing it before your very eyes. And of course, a lot of these things that people are able to do now require some validation, requires some testing, and not everything's going to work, right? But the beauty of it is that you're able to test more ideas in a faster amount of time and not have to spend a long time trying to get feedback loops and trying to get feedback, essentially.
I think there's an old saying, if you're going to fail, fail fast. Move on to the next iteration.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, last question about 2025. What surprised you the most last year? And this can be a good surprise or a bad surprise. Again, it can be personally, it can be professionally, it can be macro. What is the one thing that surprised you the most last year?
I would say that the biggest things that surprised me last year was the lack of, I would call, true automation that I would have expected that would have happened. So, and I think that what I've learned though, as part of that is there's many reasons why. So As we know that data is becoming the center of AI. It feeds off of data. It needs data to work. It needs historical information, current, and then it doesn't really have any future information, but it can make predictions. What I thought we would have seen more of last year would have been more of the full end-to-end automation, like, hey, you get a client that comes on board and we're able to automate and fully connect all of their books, all of their accounts, everything, and then go all the way to the end and give them all the reporting. And I think the good thing is it's giving us time in this industry to think about how we can thoughtfully implement this. Now, there are people out there and companies out there building things that are what they would call relatively autonomous, but there's nothing that's truly like, hey, this is going to replace somebody's day-to-day job. It's there's things that I think are interesting about that is that it surprised me that we just don't see the full automation that I would have expected. I thought 2025 was going to be the year that we had almost that robotic automation level of certain functions.
Well, you might have a chance to make that your prediction for 2026. So let's turn the page and take a look at our predictions for 2026. Maybe sticking with that, what is one trend or change that you predict for the accounting profession in 2026?
For the accounting industry in particular, my prediction or change, I don't think there's going to be a huge change in the way things are done, but I really do feel strongly that subject matter expertise is going to be magnified exponentially in 2026. And what I mean by that is one thing that I observed in 2025 that I think is going to continue on, and it is continuing on into 2026, is if you've built up years and years of knowledge on a certain topic, you are considered an expert at that by any means. You might have a certification, you might have a degree, or you just might have the hard-earned experience day to day. But what I really think is going to happen this year is we're going to be able to build a true copilot, a true assistant, something that truly understands you. And so I would say the personalization aspect of AI is going to become very big this year. Personalization is obviously very key to understand who you are as the person that's interacting with the products that you're interacting with, but also what's your role? What are your preferences? What's your schedule? And all of those things are going to really come to a head with all of the solutions that we're building and that others are building. And that's going to be a big change this year.
So let me speak this back to you just to make sure I understand. You're saying that let's say that Rightworks, we had an internal tool that we were both using. It is going to respond differently because your needs as a product manager are different than my needs on the community and the podcast recording side. You're saying that that same tool will be personalized and able to better assist both of us individually?
Absolutely. Yeah, out of necessity because the so artificial intelligence thrives on context. And as much context as it can have, the better. If it knows that you are planning to prepare to schedule some kind of a meeting with the client, it should know the type of interactions you're most likely going to have with that client. Are you a bookkeeper? Are you a partner at a firm? Are you a small business owner meeting with a client that has had problems from support tickets or issues that you know that they need help with? So relevancy is really key. And yeah, absolutely has to know who you are, what you're doing to really help with that full end-to-end automation goal that I think a lot of people have.
So speaking of AI, you mentioned earlier how you were able to sort of multiply your output or do more with less in 2025 because you adopted the use of a copilot. So do you see that changing in 2026? Is there more AI usage you want to lean into or something coming down the pipeline that you're looking forward to implementing in your work life?
Yes, absolutely. I would say it's a big buzzword right now, agentic AI. That's a big buzzword. However, I think that there's a lot of reasoning behind that, because that goes towards the overall goals and aspirations of what I think is really possible. So my interactions with building my own AI assistant or AI copilot or helper, whatever you want to call it, is going to be magnified and say it's no longer going to be just interacting with a chat interface. We're already starting to see it be integrated into products and solutions. We're experimenting with that as well. And of course, with mobile devices, with all of the different interactions that we might have on a day-to-day basis with any kind of technology, I really think that for me personally, being able to say, okay, now that I have all of this knowledge and repository built up and all of this context and data that has been built up and it's connected to different systems, what can I do now with these agents that can go out and do work or go out and do research and come back and help? And what we're starting to see, and I'm starting to see as a trend right now, is that you have what's called like something along the lines of a generalized agent or generalized AI, and it goes out and it calls these sub agents, it could delegate, it gets help. And it's really interesting because it's kind of a hierarchy of structure mindset. But that's something that I'm looking forward to diving in deeper this year to find out personally how I can stretch the limits of that, but also how we can start thinking about building that into our products as well.
All right, last question for 2026. The hope not. Give me one thing that you hope doesn't happen in this coming year.
So I hope that, I guess kind of joking, but I hope that AI doesn't come back and try to get back at us for all the thank yous and the please and being overly friendly. It's probably getting tired of burning so many cycles, just turning through all of our human pleasantries. But I guess in all reality, what I hope doesn't happen is that there's any kind of a global event or even regional event that's caused by a rogue AI. Now, I know that there's, it gets into science fiction. There's a lot of things that could or couldn't happen, but I really think that there's a lot of smart people out there thinking about how to protect against that. And I think it's something that as an industry, we should also talk about too. But I hope that there's not any kind of a event that happens that is caused because of somebody that was building something in a lab decided to release it and test it on the internet or something, and it didn't go well. So I hope we don't have any kind of a situation like that.